compiler.
Doing it. Okay, Coffee Compiler Club here to talk about the weather and or continuation passing style compilers or anything else to do with compilers and language runtimes. And you're all being recorded live. And hopefully my internet won't drop out again due to weather. And then, you'll be on YouTube within a couple hours. Okay, that's done with my spiel. You want to talk weather first just to get out of the way before we do CPS? I put pictures in Discord of landslides by my house on the main road leading to my house, plus trees down. There are hundreds of trees down on lines all over the California coastline. It was a ludicrous weekend. All right, that's my weather story done.
All right.
There seemed like there was some sort of huge storm coming towards us in Toronto, and then we got a mild drizzle, so it wasn't very exciting.
No, we got the atmospheric river with 50-mile-an-hour winds fairly regularly up here. 50. It gusts great. Much higher. It's just ludicrous how much wind there was.
I guess you don't lose shingles or anything off your tiles.
The homes are kind of built for it. It looks kind of like a tanky home. The shingles are actually some sort of combined concrete. They look like shingles, like tile, or not tiled, whatever, the stone roofs, but they're concrete.
Oh, slate.
Slate looks like a slate roof, but it's a conjoined concrete, so it's pretty robust. The ceiling beams are redwoods that are they're big, so the house is heavy. Now wind blows and it creaks. It moves and shifts and creaks like a old school sailing ship in a storm. But hell, apparently this is not its first rodeo. Fine. All right. Anyone else on weather? I had an exciting weekend. I'm done with it. Or whatever.
I don't know. It snowed here. I mean, it wasn't an unusual amount of snow or anything.
I saw pictures from Cameron's snow trips. It's all good.
Where are you here? Which part of the world?
Oh, I'm in Colorado.
So okay.
Right next to the Rockies.
I would have thought you would have got the tail end of that storm that hit us. Does it make it over the Rockies?
Yeah, that's why it snowed. It's because of but it wasn't. It wasn't that bad.
It wasn't crazy. Yeah, right. And for us, it was no snow. Yeah. I guess it was because we're lower. It was only 2,000.
It was unusually cold for a few days. So it was around I want to say 10 degrees Fahrenheit or something. So.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Continuation.
It's over 2,500. 26 something. Okay.
Yeah. So I was just before we started, I was asking about continuation passing style and sea of nodes and if they're compatible and stuff. And conversation almost broke out, and then we stopped and started the recording.
Yeah. I don't know if it works in sea of nodes. It looks reasonable to me, and I haven't done it. And my current effort is to understand continuations in the sea of nodes kind of directly, but I'm not using them to compile.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. It seems like there shouldn't be anything fundamentally that would prevent it. So
yeah,
I want to say something. So there are these papers on continuation, compiling with continuations, and compiling without continuations, and so on. And so basically, what they've concluded is that it's kind of like SSA form, in that in particular, if you mark your continuations as being functions or not functions, like function calls or tail calls or whatever. So if you keep track of whether you compiled a function call into a continuation or not, is basically what I think they're trying to say. Then that gives you enough information that you can compile the continuations back to the functional form of the normal call.
Right.
And so in particular, so it's only like first class continuations where like you know pass around the whole world and whatever that are really hard to compile. And so those obviously they're like I think there was a name for them. It was like I don't know, weird continuations or something.
Actual continuations and not just
Yeah,
faking it.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah, something like non-function like continuations.
Yeah,
And
Right,
so
because you
those,
could do continuations by just by putting a big switch statement at the top of your function that's like, okay, which entry point did you go to, and have an extra parameter that's the entry point.
right. And so like I mean they were trying to compile with LLVM, and so like basically they were saying if we mark these continuations, then we know how to compile them back to a form LLVM understands, and we don't need anything special, and
yeah, okay.
so then there was like there was this Manticore stuff where like he was like I don't it's like a version of ML that uses continuation passing for like the core of the compiler. And so he was like, well, I don't want to implement this continuation marking. And so he implemented a new calling convention for LLVM. So it's called like jump with argument. And so it basically says, I'll store all of these things to registers, and then I won't return. And apparently you implement it as a calling convention in LLVM and it works. So, so that's how you shoehorn it into existing compiler frameworks. But is basically you pretend it's a procedure call, except it never returns, so you don't have to worry about the return register convention.
Yeah. C2 definitely understands a jump versus a call, a tail jump instead of a call. The tail call optimization was never done per se, but he can do a cross procedural go to, and that shows up with try finally catch block things where you're just using a throw to do a directed jump, and he'll pick up on that.
If you use a bunch of passing continuations around in your compiler, are you running the risk that your output may be less deterministic? The real advantage is if you compile the same source, you always get the same binary.
Those are like unrelated. Like compiler is in theory a deterministic operation. So he just given an input, he will deterministically give you the same output. Now you could ask for, I want like a strong Church-Rosser one-step property such that a semantically equivalent input gives me gives me equivalent outputs. Or
I mean, the determinism in a compiler comes from things that you don't expect, like multi-threaded allocation of unique IDs, for example. That's,
you mean in the determinism in the compiler?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the compiler that's a don't care. Oh, I have some enum that I'm throwing stuff in. Well, I don't actually care which numbers match to which things in the enum.
And things come out different. Yeah, I have a strong...
No, I'm doing some code layout. Well, this block and this block are totally unordered in the sea of nodes because they're just not having dependencies. I can put them in whatever order I want. How do I make those don't cares all come out the same way so that the same compile run twice gives me the same hash?
I have a strong normalizing test in my current AA setup that verifies that independent of what random choices I make, I get the same everything when I'm done. And I'm doing that by running a work list algorithm with repeatedly different seeds on the work list, and then confirming that I get the same answer in the end. So it's not, I don't have a proof that I got it, but I have a strong test that says if I randomly pick different orders in the work list, and I get a different answer at the end, I'll catch it and find the non-determinism and fix it. And then for each of those cases, like you said, where left and right are equivalent, I don't care. I always sort them based on who came first, generally. Everyone gets a unique ID, so I can use it in my bit vector tests and whatever, sorting and determinism. And then the low order goes before the high order if there's no other choice. So no other reason to.
Would you say that the non-determinism is like a strong indicator of a bug being present without necessarily being a bug, or?
No, the non-determinism means that it's hard to track down actual bugs. Forcing determinism means that if I have a bug, it shows up every time in every way. Whereas if it's non-determinism, then sometimes the bug can lurk a long time waiting for the right reordering to expose it.
Yeah, okay.
And if recompiling the same git hash gives you a version that doesn't have that bug in it, that can be annoying.
Right. So I have actual determinism. I don't have any multi-threading things going on, but the work list has pseudo-random properties. Everything done on the work list can be done in any order. So I run seeds and I get different orders on purpose. And then I verify I get the same thing out when I'm done.
Also, there's some silly operational things that really help if you have deterministic builds. So Google builds a lot of Python code and built systems to distribute the PYC files and know when things needed to be rebuilt. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, the PYC files in Python had a timestamp of the source file that they came from in them, which meant every single time you compiled it, because you compiled it at a different time, you got a different output and the hashes didn't match.
Oh, ooh.
And that made their operational weird distributing PYC files thing much more complicated because there was a bunch of stuff which was identical except for time that the build ran. Okay. And they pushed real hard to get the Python community for Python 3 to include not a timestamp, but a hash of the source file in the PYC so that it could be deterministic.
But if it's just a timestamp of the source file, unless you're updating that source file, the hash won't change.
I heard him say a timestamp of the build.
Or moving it to a new computer.
Yeah, I suppose if you're checking out a Git today instead of yesterday, yeah,
right.
You might.
Oh,
file system timestamps are not consistent as you move things around.
You have 1,000 programmers checking files in and out. Somebody will always have touched something.
Yeah, reminds me of ClearCase. When you check out a file, you get the file with the timestamp of the commit date. End of story. It's just.
That makes sense. What do you get out of GitHub if I check a file out? Is he not giving me the...
You can remove a file, you can check it out again, it'll get the current timestamp.
I figured, I don't know. Fine.
But you can edit the file.
I don't think it stores the timestamps at which files happened.
Well, timestamp at which the server agreed that he took the commit.
Well, no, well, the
SVN used to do that.
I don't think you'd want to do that because you're if you check out an older commit, your builds wouldn't rebuild.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of using hashes rather than timestamps to know which of the files you need to rebuild.
I was like, Git hashes. And then I'm like, oh, okay, same time. Okay, fine. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, hash. Okay.
Yeah, we're also, hashes present a different problem. On Mac OS, when you need to sign things, get them authorized or notarized. If you rebuild something, the hash might change and the notarization doesn't apply anymore, and it just makes a big mess of things.
If you if you've signed a binary and then you change something in the hash, then the binary's got to get re-signed.
Yeah, I don't understand all the details here, but Java 9 and up have a JLink command. Yeah. And so you can build a JDK and then, build your, you've got some application, you can JLink something smaller that just has the modules you need for that application. So it takes the JMod files of those modules and recreates a new, package, but that new package is not notarized, and so like I say, I haven't figured all the details, but we've got to do something to get it notarized again, otherwise Mac OS won't let you run it.
Just by trimming things out, he won't let you run it.
Yeah, so you get a new application, and maybe only parts of it are notarized.
Yeah, I've made that mistake on Macs before I installed the Mac dev tools, so my key is in my keychain, and you build things and it runs and everything works on your machine, and then you move it to another machine and it's like, I don't trust this signature. I'm not running. What is this?
Yeah, you have to, you can't use your own key if you're distributing. You have to join the Apple developer, whatever, and then you have to buy a key from them. Or yeah, we have a key, and they update it, I think, once a year. So I have to do that this month actually. So you download a new key, and yeah, and Xcode, of course, is not the most up to date tool from the 1940s.
Oh, surely you've got more colors than green and black.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. It can do everything NextOS can do.
There are similarities.
Oh, wow. Okay, 5-minute AA update. No, 2-minute AA update. Yeah, crazy winter storms and power going out, internet going out. I've gotten about 100 test cases passing, and I'm on to the next set of several hundred more. So it's chugging along slowly.
I've been pulling the AA repo periodically, but haven't had any joy from that for a long time.
I haven't. I'm on a branch called like TV.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. What branch is this on? If I actually want to try something.
So TV1 was type variables. There was no 1 on it. Then there was a TV2. Now I'm on a TV3, which seems to have be sticking. And prims was me. I had to rethink my primitives, and I've gone back and forth on the internal compiler representation of primitives as being wrapped one layer with a class like a boxed capital I integer or not. And I'm back to the not. I flipped that switch at least twice, once in each direction twice. I'm back to primitives being primitives, and I know the class of an int and a float directly, and other things that have classes I can get, but they have to have an actual like vtable in the representation that I get the class out of.
So for the primitives, are you just using the things that like the hardware supports?
I know no such restriction. So the primitives have the class, and primitives has all the operators, whatever operators I want to throw in the language, and then how they're implemented. So add, subtract, multiply, divide, all do obvious things. But like math.square root or sine or something might probably do some sort of wrapper around hardware on x86 and soft lib on on AMD or whatever, RISC-V. I have other weird things going on, like because of everyone who makes a function call that didn't like handwrite anonymous, the function gets the first parameter from where it got loaded from. Everyone, basically all function pointers have a this everywhere. It's like they're all fat pointers. Anyhow, you want to call random, there's obvious people would say you go math.rand, you pass it a 1, but I can do it as a 1.rand because the .rand just is a lookup on the 1 and says, oh, you must be looking for the rand field on the 1 class. Well, that's a function that takes the 1 argument, which is the 1, and produces an answer, which whatever the hell that is, turns out to be a random number. So I'm weirdly staring at a lot of API things that I can do differently. I don't know if it's good to do them differently, but I could do them differently.
I saw this almost exact example on, I don't know if you saw the Hackernews article the other day about weird language features that I like or something.
Oh no, I did not. I haven't looked at.
I can see if I can dig it up for you, but yeah.
Wait a minute, is this pointer a thing you're saying you like about language features or you don't like?
Well, it was just a general collection, and one of them was so it was basically interesting ideas from different languages, and so one of them was, I think, Zig, which is a language I've never used, but it was saying you can do x dot function or function parenthesis x pretty much interchangeably everywhere. And there were a lot of comments about, wait, aren't you polluting the global namespace with your object instance methods then? And then it turned out to be basically, yeah, that was a problem.
Say the problem again, because I'm going to be looking at the same problem.
Well, just because in Zig, you could define classes, it seemed. I'm no expert on Zig, but from the comments. And so you define an instance method on, say, circle, get area. It would create a global function called get area. And then if you define square get area, it would maybe overwrite that or something. I don't know. It was a bit weird. Anyway, they seem to have a way of dealing with it, which didn't sound great. But the more interesting thing was, well, going the other way and saying, well, global functions can be applied as if they're class members, or like sort of static functions. That seemed more of the interesting part of it. I'll see if I can find this, but it
doesn't sound like any kind of particularly real difficulty. It's just a convention. You know, do you say x dot f or do you say f of x? Yeah. And the compiler just translates one into the other, whichever way it prefers to deal with it, and they both mean the same thing. And so you can have overloading, and everything's cool.
Yeah, I'm swapping code. Who's typing code samples for me in? Is that Aaron?
I was typing the ABC. What should the this pointer be? A lot of the security vulnerabilities and problems we've seen in JavaScript is that people don't realize the depth of things you can get access to with the this pointer. So you hand somebody something and they start playing with the this pointer and they find their way all the way back to your window object, and now they're manipulating the whole web page.
Oh, I see.
You're like, oh, I needed to pass the function in a slightly different way so that the this pointer was the none, and I didn't expose the window object. So I'm curious what people's opinions are on how a this pointer should work in a language that we're designing now, or is this just a bad idea and we shouldn't have a this pointer?
I don't think it has anything to do with this. If you provide navigation from one object to containers that you don't want people to play with, well, then you designed an API badly.
Right, exactly. That's right. Yeah. So I wrote you an answer and doc.
And if you constrain it, you can't do serialization.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said if you constrain it, you cannot do serialization. So that's the problem that Java has. That's why they had to hack the serialization straight into the VM. Because you either have the ability to follow the links and get the data you need to serialize, or you have security. And they chose security, so serialization was impossible, so they hacked it straight into the VM. And now Brian Getz has been spending the last 20 years trying to yank that crap out.
Yeah, you're saying that you don't have security, so they failed.
I mean, I used unsafe to do this, which meant, as far as I was concerned, I just bypassed your security, and you didn't have
security. And Java's already taken the security manager out anyway. So
that was a lot of the piece of junk. Sorry, it was.
It was, but after 15 years of working on it, they actually made a pretty good working system. But by that time, everyone had it disabled. So therefore, having a piece of code that wasn't getting exercised was a potential disaster waiting to happen. So they just took it out.
Yeah.
But when it started, it would slow everything down by 10x. And by the time they took it out, it was maybe a 10% performance impact, which is brilliantly good. But by that time, nobody used it.
It was too late. I had to compile around it, and it was too difficult. So I just said, if security manager involved, the JIT just gave up. Gave up inlining mostly is what the rule was, and that was your security 10x right there. Hey, no inlining.
Yeah, I think we know why the performance was bad then.
Yeah, right. I mean, I didn't know how to
it was Cliff's fault.
It's my fault. I don't know that it's my fault, but I know that I contributed by saying I got too much other shit on my plate. I'm not touching this crap. And I do have I want to see what the uniform call syntax that came from Matt is. Is that in the links now in the doc? Maybe, yeah, because I have this funny call sequence in AA, which I'm gonna go, oh, this is gonna be a big paper. I support simultaneously and ambiguously with and without whatever. And for me, that's all the same syntax and it's all the same semantics. And that's why I call it uniform. Great, I'll do some uniform call syntax. Uniform call syntax. Yes, if I look, I can type. So AB is A function A is called with parameter B. And here is a function A is called with tuple B, C, D. What are you doing here, Google? What the heck the extra things for? Which syntax sugars how to split arbs in A.
So arguably every function is a single parameter function.
Every function is a single parameter function.
And multi-parameter and multi-return are the same thing. It's just tuples.
And the tuple auto sugars out for you if you have multiple args on the receiving end. And there's one ambiguous case where you're called with a tuple of one argument, and did you want the tuple or did you want the one argument? And by default, I'll give you the one argument, and I have a way to say, no, I'll just take the tuple because I'm doing a var args thing. I'm going to work through the tuple anyhow. So you could.
Do you have proposed syntax for that?
I don't, but it's like a one-hit wonder button on the call signature. I'll do something that says expand or don't, and I'll probably have some sort of tuple syntax on the args list that says I want the tuple and not the syntactic sugar breakdown. And it's only that one case of the one guy, right? As soon as you have multiple args on the function, you meant to expand it. And then I'll count args and I'll complain if you don't have the right count, and I'll do all the right things for a standard multi-arg call.
And what about multiple returns? You said that you can send it, you can return it.
Yeah, the returns aren't ambiguous in any way. You just you want to make a multi-return, you make a tuple and return it. If on
then you receive a tuple.
Yeah, and you receive into a tuple that's on the left-hand side of an assignment, then I'm going to do the breakdown. I'm going to demand tuples on both sides and do the breakdown. And you can obviously generate code there that doesn't do any allocation. It just
so I did something different there for my I did multi-return in mine, and my convention is that if you do a function call and it's multi-return, but you don't receive it into a multi-receive, it will just give you the first returned value and all the rest will be thrown out. So my thinking is if I want to do a divide, I can do a Divmod function type of thing. And it'll be the divided value.
Yeah,
but if I
it's not Divmod, by the way, it's
return values, then it gives you the div.
It's Divrem. If you do Divmod, you will hate left. So our percent operator is a modulo operator, and I implemented our /% as a Divmod, and then I blew my foot off with that foot gun, and had to go back and research what the fuck I was thinking. And yeah, so I only know this because Darrick, I stepped in that pile.
Yeah,
but we have
I think the problem is that somehow the word Divmod became like it's something I've heard of before, even though it's obviously wrong when you think about it.
I have not trained myself yet to say Divrem, so I still call Divrem Divmod accidentally.
I've Divmod forever and a day, but I think Divrem is what actually you get.
Yeah, and since I'm actually working on decimal type formats right now, I'm actually using Divrem quite a bit.
But who would call Divmod on a negative number anyway? So it's fine.
Because they do. I don't know. I worked with mathematicians, and they like their mathematical properties. And
I've been doing some work on video game programming lately, and I actually wanted Divmod. I wanted Euclidean modulus because I would work like if the room was in a negative space, I still wanted it to operate the way that the positive space.
But it's a different div in that case, right? So you actually get a one-off on the div, and then you get the flip of the modulo, right?
I mean, it's Euclidean division in either case, so the remainder is always between 0 and whatever.
See, my challenge is I neither have a background in math nor computers, so I'm pretty much clueless on both of those.
I'm in the same boat, Cameron.
Excellent. Then we have the rest of these people who write papers for a living.
Yeah, you know what I do when I have a math question? I get out the algebra tool, either Wolfram Alpha or now I use the Immutils, which is like a closure version, which is kind of better. And I just type in things until I'm less confused or more confused and give up.
Does your language have a left side black hole? If I want the second item of the tuple, can I be like, give me underscore, comma, the thing I care about?
I could.
Yep.
That seems.
I'm doing that, yeah. So basically, what I'm doing is you would have to receive it into something. And what it looks like is a destructuring, like binding into a vector, like or in Python, because I have like the two syntaxes, it would be a destructuring.
But that's why it's nice to have
binding
underscore as a kind of dev
tuple.
null to say, I don't care about this value. I put it in here, but
Yeah. So in my language, you can't receive the
see the
tuple. You
chat.
can only receive the destructured versions. And if you receive, you receive the first thing. And that's because I have no data structures in my language. So there's no question about it. So
I wouldn't think it should matter whether you call the, one of the parts of what you're receiving underscore or something else. If you call it something else and you just don't use it, it should work out the same as if you gave it an underscore and you couldn't use it.
There's no special underscore character. You just something that you don't use. You could have an underscore variable that you use too if you wanted. Wouldn't matter.
and you're just relying on dead value detection to clear it out.
Exactly. Yeah. So that stuff's all sorted already. So
That's what
it
I
seems
would
to work nicely. I mean,
do that as well. So I've got a question for whoever wrote, say Aaron maybe wrote in the Google Docs. Under C is a this and F. Yeah, I just highlighted it. What is your syntax for, what are you trying to accomplish with A equals function of F equals da 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 da?
In the first one, A is a struct.
You need the ampersand with the field. There you go. We tied putting ampersands in, so let me get rid of the extra one. Yeah. Then
and the dot 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 is my splat operator. Right. I want B to be made of all of the things that were in
not
A.
an ampersand, right? That's an @ sign.
Yeah,
the ampersand is the
I can't talk.
shift
Okay.
7. Just wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page because you confused me there for a minute.
I mean, we can have debates about the correct names of the characters on the top row of the keyboard.
Yeah, pound that. Sorry, English keyboards have a British keyboards have a different pound.
So if a function is being declared inside of a struct, then
here I feel like that this should be A.
No, it's the struct, which is assigned to A. It's not. Yeah, it's A, but only because you're folding it that way. It's an anonymous struct. That struct or whatever instance of that class of struct is what's being passed as this pointer in to F. On all scales and all scopes and all places, all functions for me get a this pointer representing the surrounding context that they've been compiled inside of, as the closest possible surrounding contexts are compiled. And this includes nested lexical scopes. I don't know how sensible that turns out, but it seems to be almost always the right thing. So in your case where you've made an anonymous struct and not a constructor of such structs, it will in fact always be A because that's your anonymous struct.
So if I want this function to increment some piece of data, it's just...
Yeah, no, you don't have to put a dot in front of it. No, get rid of the dot. Then just use the plus plus operator, which is semantically equivalent to what you did. So it's just n plus plus. Yeah.
But if I define an n in that function, that'll shadow the n that's in the this.
Yeah, every time Cliff does an n plus plus, my blood boils because it should be plus plus n. But...
Well, no, in the old school C world, n plus plus and plus plus n returned you different things. They were two different semantically. That's correct.
Yeah, and
they still return you different things.
The post increment can generally be more expensive, and you shouldn't ask for it if you don't want it.
Okay,
That's
wait,
right.
wait. I have to call bullshit on that one for like 30, 40 years now. Plus was the right answer on, 6502, 6809 chips.
No. Okay, I'm thinking in C++, right?
No,
On an
and
arbitrary
then-
class, you don't know what the difference between the
But
pre-increment
if
and
you're
the
not doing anything
post-increment.
with it, Cliff's going to
See?
optimize it out.
That's correct. You're right. If you're not using the result, it's just dead, and
Yes,
no one cares.
But years ago,
Maybe.
before that obvious optimization was added, it was actually more expensive on the first compilers to use n++ versus ++n.
Oh, I did them
serious.
on that era, and never was it ever an issue. All right. Let's not go there anymore. Fine. So the next
Well,
thing, Aaron,
my first book on C was actually explaining why you should use ++n instead of n++.
by the
because of
time you got your
compiler.
first book, I already knew that cost was nonsense, and the compiler was going to get rid of it.
I
By
was
the
taught
time
that
I
in
got-
college, and
Because
no one else does that.
some of us have been
I can't
around
drop
long
it.
enough to have to deal with compilers that aren't smart enough to erase the difference.
Well, make your life happier.
So you're right though, Cliff, because by the time I got that book was probably not just out of print, but the author was probably dead. So
Dead of old age, or he had a bigger neck beard than I did. Yeah, for sure. All right, the next thing, Aaron, is get rid of the arrow. You got no args on your function f, so it doesn't need an arrow. I'll get rid of it. Yeah, just wipe it out. There you go. That is also valid, and that just says f is a function which increments n. And now what about the shadowing issue? As soon as I have n in, if I have a first use of a variable in a function is a read, that variable has to be found in scope somewhere, and then that's the variable for the rest of the function. If the first use of a function variable is a write, I'm defining it new in the function and it shadows. Since a ++ is a load in, add one, store in, your load happens first. It's a read first. It doesn't shadow. It uses the one in the scope of A.
So would that mean that if you wanted to have a function that just changed n to something not derived from n, you'd have to have a bogus read of n before it that you
Yeah, if you intend to just write something, so I might change the rules for struct scoping. These are like similar to Python rules for global versus local. If your first use is a read, you're looking for it in scope. And one of my decisions making here is, am I shadowing or am I exactly just setting this pointer in the one scope out? And then it gets a complicated rule. If you're one scope out, I'll let you first use of a write doesn't shadow. I don't know. It seems bogus also.
If my first use is saying n equals n,
yeah, then there's a read and then a write.
have I shadowed it because
No.
I assigned a new n?
No. As soon as you
Because
say
the
n
read
equals
happened
n,
before the write.
the read happens for the write. Yeah, and that would be the way that you would bring it into scope. It's
So
like,
if I want to create a local copy, rename the variable.
yeah, yes.
So did you see Matt's comment in the chat there?
Makes a difference for. Yeah, right. It's the Matt, the two different numbers you get out, or whether you want the before or the after number. And as the result, which depends on what your iterator semantics are and the like. I grew up using, system.array copy was for I equals 1 to n, star pointer plus plus is equal to star pointer plus plus, which copies the first byte and then increments both pointers. So I always use the post increment typically.
Isn't all the confusion around this solved, and generally typo errors are also sort of eliminated? Not that that's too important, but just by putting a let, just like the word let or something, just to say this is new.
If I wanted to do, so this is the no keyword land. As soon as you say let, you can say n equals n. Fine.
Yeah. But then you just have a clarity in terms of you're defining something in a local scope or you're not, and you just
right.
It's like
or
you don't
var,
need to kind
or whatever. Yeah, right. I mean, then there's a question of I'm going to have a var keyword or not that says, yeah, I'm defining a scope thing right here, right now, and it's shadowing, and I don't care that it's shadowing. If you just say n equals something, you're shadowed, and if that's your goal, you got it. But the question, you know, Aaron is I'm in's a mode button and I'm flipping it from mode open to mode closed. So say in equals closed. I don't want to shadow a new in. I want to go out of scope. And what's the right syntax to distinguish between making a local variable and or using one that's out of your scope? And I don't have a right answer in terms of I'm solidly 100% there. I like what I'm seeing right now, and I haven't used it in anger, so that's still open. I've used other languages where this happens in some amount of error, you know, anger, and it's reasonable. Shadowing is not very common, so another thing to do is to say I'm going to go out of scope, and if I don't find in, then I make it local, but first I hunt the entire scope. And then you can't shadow.
Python goes the other way. They have a non-local keyword. So you can be like non-local n. Go up my stack, find an n. That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
Okay. Right. Okay. Then I had it backwards.
But you would rather default the other way.
Well, I'm not certain yet. I want a simple rule, and I don't like the rule I have, other than it's simple and obvious. But I think in using an anger, it's not what I want. I want to go out the scope. I want to typically get the non-local value. I rarely want to shadow, because shadowing, and half the time I do it, is actually a mistake. Or it's a confusion, because then I have two names, one local and one remote, and both of them are interesting and they're different, but they have the same name and I can't tell them apart. And then shadow was a mistake. So typically for me, shadowing is a mistake.
Well, I agree with the shadowing is bad, but my question is, how do you say kind of the opposite? You know, I want to define a type or structure, whatever we want to call it, that does not have any access to any of the stuff in the scope where that structure is declared. So how do I say, you know, that define A that doesn't have access to the outer N?
I don't have a syntax for it. The parser and the language all can support it, because it just means you didn't bother to look up scope. So I can say you can't bother to look up scope, but I don't have it.
Yeah, so I'm not saying it's challenging for the compiler, but I think it's an important feature of the language to say, you know, I'm defining this class. So like in Java, you would have an inner class, you'd say static when you don't want it to be able to access fields of the outer class. But,
right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will take that under advisement. There's got to be an easy way to do that. And mostly for me, it's a syntax question now. What's the right syntax to say?
Yeah. So when we define a function, it can't capture. And when we define a lambda, it captures by default.
Right.
And I'm actually not happy with the result, but I'm not sure that I'm seeing any better answer. So Keith, it does what you're saying, but there are certainly times when I want things to capture that don't. I'll put it that way. So it's a challenge, because it's kind of a binary thing. Either capture can or capture cannot, right?
well, I mean, I guess you can go the other way too. You could have a syntactic mechanism say capture these three things from the environment when you define this type. Right?
Well,
there's C++ has something like that with its, I don't know, the lambdas, where you can say, you know, the not
You
the
can
scope.
reference what
you know,
captures. You can reference.
Yeah, the challenge I have with that is that the level of control you give people over that, the complexity tends to go up pretty dramatically for what you get. So it's like you have to, at some point you have, and I'm not saying I have the answer right, so I'm not preaching about it. I'm just saying at some point you have to say, okay, this complexity just is not worth it.
you're writing code. If you don't want to use the outer scope variables, don't use them. You're asking for extra syntax that verifies that, in fact, you didn't use them.
Yeah, I want help from the compiler. I don't intend to use these things in the outer scope. Tell me if I messed up.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you reference it, it silently turns into a closure.
Honestly, to me, it would almost be enough to have the syntax highlighting do that for me. It's one color if I use a variable that's in the local scope. It's a different color if I use a variable that came from the other scope.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not fussy about
IntelliJ will do that.
I want a tool to help me, whether it's the editor or the compiler, I'm not too fussy about.
Okay.
Tooling is better.
But yeah, if I can get locals, non-locals, and globals to be different colors, that's a win.
use a leading underscore for a local. I'm sorry, for one scope out, the this pointer object that you're in. Locals have no leading underscore, and instance variables have a leading underscore. And it's not great strategy, but it's just a.
You're doing that as a style decision, not as something.
Decision. Yeah.
Oh,
It
if
makes
you
it obvious for
reference, if you reference this pointer, it should be red. You should be cautious.
Well, I don't use this pointer typically, except there are a couple style places.
If you accidentally capture the this pointer, you should
capture the this pointer. No, I capture the this
because
pointer all the time.
let's say for Scala, there was a project that you have to sanitize the closure to accidentally not capture this pointer, so you don't have a closures that's gigabytes inside. Let's say.
That you give what inside? You're very quiet.
Okay, let me try to. Oh yeah, the mic. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Scala has a project that.
Now you're painfully loud.
Oh, okay.
It's not painfully loud on my end.
Yeah, not painfully loud for me.
It's hurting my ear.
Sorry. So for Scala, there is a project to sanitize if you capture the closure this pointer, because you want to serialize the closure and send them. If you capture the this pointer, you can accidentally send a jar gigabytes inside. Let's say megabytes inside, and this is painfully to discover it after the fact.
What's this pointer in the situation there? It's everything you pointed to in the surrounding
context.
Yeah,
the surrounding class.
It's a JVM.
Yeah, the surrounding class, and that's where it gets complicated.
I mean, I use this pointer in cyclic data structures all the time, so I end up capturing. I don't know what capturing.
So
I use this
Tito,
all the time. Indirectly.
Does it only capture this pointer because you're using it, or does it capture it because it's just easier for the compiler to capture stuff it doesn't actually need?
Accidentally reference a variable that needs to enclose the serialization of the closure to include more and more stuff and be it you can capture something that cannot be serialized, that they have no meaning on the other side when you deserialize it.
Yeah, that's actually, I hit that myself. That it's usually inner classes that have this enclosing this pointer, and you don't realize you grab the entire tree, and then there's something way down there that's not serializable.
Oh, interesting.
Yep, you accidentally closed over something that closed over something that closed over the file system, and no serialization for you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I had something like that recently. I don't know, shared at some point. I was making something that walked the heap to compute the size of the object, size of Java objects. And I had one test that was taking a really long time, and I realized it was walking my entire file system, including my network file system. Like, wow, I accidentally made a worm.
Yeah.
I mean, but that is the size of that object.
Yes, it was. It was giving me the correct answer.
Internet,
I was confused. I'm like, I don't have that much memory. How is it giving me back this terabyte number?
I thought you were just using Apache Commons.
Hey,
it walked my Gradle directory.
And what are you talking about in the AA function section? In : equals ... in.
I was saying if your rule is by reading n, I pull the global n in.
Yeah.
I could have syntax that gets me access to this. So if I do something like ... n that says, read me the n, but the n from the outer scope, but I'm not just saying n, I'm explicitly referring to the one from the outer scope. Now I can name my local n because I haven't touched my local n as a read.
Oh, this is an effort to make a local copy of n.
Right.
Yeah, I would claim that
if you give me some kind of syntax that says I am explicitly talking about the n that is not in this scope, but is in the outer scope.
Right.
Now I haven't pulled it into my scope by touching n.
I would claim that if I make a copy of a variable internally with the same name, because I want to have it different and side effects aren't affecting the outer one, that I'm shooting myself as a foot gun. This is like, I'm about to make a mistake here if I haven't already. Just fucking rename it. This is my local in.
And
I call local in as a word. as a variable.
There's a sort of similarity to that line of code to the one I just highlighted below here.
Well, the A equals A, I have a right-hand side error because A is not defined in the, if it's a standalone expression. You know what, the A that's all the way up the scope, then it works fine.
Yeah.
Then this is a read the outer scope, assign it to itself. Now all A's refer to the outer scope A.
That A equals A should grab that A.
Actually, yes. Okay, so this is all one function. It's not an error. I'll get rid of my error message here. I was thinking people were writing standalone expressions, but no, if each one is its own thing, well, that's Google. What are you doing?
It's helping.
Fine. Yes, that works. That says I have a struct with a field A that's referring to another struct, which is the one above, which has N and F.
Yeah. Why is it sometimes A equals and sometimes it's A colon equals?
Mutable colon equals is a mutable ref. And non-colon equals is a final.
Got it.
So again, I haven't used it in anger enough to say something.
Var versus val.
Yeah.
Can you promote something that, like, can I say A equals something with an immutable ref and then later say, you know, A colon equals A, and I've suddenly made it mutable?
No.
You can go in one direction, but not the other.
That wouldn't be very mutable.
Yeah.
You can mutate the mutable one into immutable, but you cannot mutate the immutable one into mutability.
Yes.
Well,
So
that's
one way trip.
sensible. I was just asking.
Yeah. And I'm doing this on the assignment, not on the object being assigned, which we could argue is the wrong way to go, and I don't know yet.
So you could have like a sort of thing where you're like constructing an object and you say A colon equals blah, 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 and you work for a while, and then eventually A equals A, and now it's immutable.
Yes.
And is that recursive?
Yeah.
Recursively immutable?
Yes. I haven't decided on that one, and I'm going back and forth. This is like pony people say that you want to do this, and maybe they're right. And so if you want to pass it across threads, you probably intended to have the whole damn thing be immutable, but not always. Some cases you're making a mutable thing as a container. I'm handing a container to another thread who's going to fill it.
Yeah.
Right. And so one thread builds the queue of works to do, and then he hands it out to a pool of workers who add and subtract things off the shared common queue. So some of the queue management structures are immutable, and some of them are definitely mutable. And how do you define what parts are mutable and what aren't when you publish it? So I can track all that, but I don't know what the right syntax or rules are to be the default.
Yeah.
So I think I'm burned by the fact that I've actually been programming, but when I first started programming, the immutable reference to a mutable thing really confused me.
Yeah.
Whereas like this thing is immutable, but the set keeps changing, and you're like, oh, the immutable references that you were referring to the set itself can mutate all at once.
It can mutate all at once.
What do these words mean?
Right.
Yeah. That really confused me when I first started.
Yeah, I really like the so Clojure does the thing where everything is immutable, and then there's certain things that are specifically mutable. So you have like an atom object, and it just, you can change which immutable thing it points to. That's kind of the idea. Or you could just use Java stuff, which is whatever it is. So you have kind of both avenues. And then I've been using, and so I've actually had to deal with this exact issue because I've been using this. So I created this immutable graph database, and I've been using it for my compiler. It's an in-memory graph database, and it's so like, you know, you've got the nodes and edges that you can have references to and you can be using. And so while I'm doing a pass in the compiler, I'm doing everything in mutable mode. And then between every pass, I go immutable, but it means that I have to be careful not to hold on to old references to anything. Mm-hmm. Because if because they stay mutable and I can change them, and it messes up my immutable objects if I do it. So they're not
actually
like fully immutable, really. But it works okay with a bit of discipline, and you know, it gives me some nice stuff, and it's like a structural sharing thing.
C2 runs through phases where I rewrite the IR, and I cannot carry a pointer from the old version to the new version of the IR. So
But like, for instance, as I'm doing my compiler passes, I keep a reference to the immutable version of the graph between every step. And then afterwards, I can do things like diff from one version to another and see exactly what nodes changed. And then I just put them into a table, or I can actually render them. It's really useful for debugging. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing that with AA right now.
I can actually show like not run. Well, I mean, I could show running code, but I have like the output of a compile. I actually just hit a sort of milestone the other day, so I'm all excited. My largest sort of example program now compiled down to just the result. So I need some more complex examples.
Well, that's a good sign.
Yeah, so 635 steps in compilation.
Yeah.
And the result is 42. So, but if you want, I can show a couple of things around that.
Yeah, hearing you, I'm getting sort of semi-inspired to go write a visualizer for the progress that
Yeah, well, why don't I show what I've got?
All right, just a second here.
And
okay, go.
All right. I'll just share my whole screen here. Actually, I'll share.
You'll share just the app.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to show two things. So I'm going to share. Oh, okay. I'll just share this. Okay. So,
you have to increase your font size.
Yeah. Okay. How's that?
That's good enough for me.
Okay. So basically what I've got is two outputs here, and
we can't see your mouse.
Can't see my mouse?
Okay, there it is. It's really tiny. Okay, yeah, highlight if you can. Sorry, when you do that.
Big screen, big font.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically this table is all the nodes in the graph at the end of the compile. And then here I've got the steps that I've basically gone through after the compile is complete and printed out the diff between every version. So it's basically what step or steps happened, and then like what changed. So it's nodes removed. And actually when I do the delete, I actually capture why thing was deleted and if I was cascading or not. And so this is actually inspired. I was going back through some of the old CCC videos, and I saw your outputs, the way you were outputting graph nodes. So it's kind of based on that. But so like I can basically say, okay, this is what the nodes were in the previous graph, and then these are the ones that changed. And there's no added, so nothing was added. And then basically just, it's kind of nice because I can say, oh, like, this is the step that did this and like why, and I can go look up the function. And then I have my visualizer, which I use it all the time, actually.
Okay.
I'll share this as well.
I usually still cut and paste from IntelliJ print dumps to Emacs, and then I add notes to myself about what's going on.
So I have, this is the whole resulting graph. So right now I'm not deleting empty regions, but basically I'm, kind of program starts, dead region, dead region, dead region, make a call, don't do anything in return. Although we do actually store 2 into some memory location. And this memory address, it's just named, comes out and into a state projection, and then to the end, and there's my result of the program. And there's actually several function calls in this. I don't actually have inlining built yet, but because I'm doing the call site analysis stuff, like anything that's called once just kind of inlines itself usually anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's.
Yeah. So the next thing is you go realize that 42 isn't a pointer, so that all the memory is dead at the exit.
Yeah.
And you just cut the memory edge and let the dead code clean up after that.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that I would keep the memory because, like, basically it's state in the system, so I could go back and inspect, you know, the program that's finished.
It's if 42 is a computation and not a constant, then it'll be kept alive. But if 42 is actually the answer, you don't need that memory state that was half optimized away anyhow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, maybe that's true. Certainly if there's multiple stores, like if I store the stride equals 1 and then stride equals 2, it's gonna just keep the last one.
Right. This is just another version of the same thing where you've decided you've got a dead memory for whatever reason. I have aliases all over the place. Different aliases go dead at different times. I trim an alias edge and then it folds up and suddenly the allocation of that object goes away as well. And and for me, doing it on root is the same. It's identical. I don't do anything as it is for doing it for anyone else.
Yeah. So, but I've been kind of slowly refining this. This is still that D2 based visualizer, and
it's nice. It looks better than you had before.
Yeah. So I gradually, you know, started sticking names on edges and coloring things a little bit and stuff.
Yeah, some shapes and colors. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple shapes. Yeah, just to distinguish things, and
you're going across, but when you get big, you might want to be going down.
Yeah, it's an argument I can give it to go either down or across. The visualizer just is weirdly not dense at all if you go down, so you just don't see much on the screen at a time.
Really?
So it's just a problem with D2. Like it's just even if you like, I'll share again here, but it annoys me how much padding it puts on these boxes. Like there's so much.
Those are all knobs you can go turn.
There would be if the D2 gave me a knob to turn, but
you're kidding. I swear I've screwed with D2 in the past and everything had a knob.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, maybe. I thought D2 was fairly new.
I want to say I was using D.
Are you sure you're talking about the same thing? Because
no, I'm not now. I did Elm. I did a big data visualizer for financial transactions in Elm, but I backed it with, you know, the graph visualizer. I want to say was a JavaScripty thing, and I'm confusing D2 with it, and maybe I'm wrong on D2 there.
Maybe you're thinking of D3, which is the that JavaScript visualizer, and it's like really powerful, and you can do everything. This is like a very simple thing where they have their own little language, which
I'm not thinking. You're correct. I don't know.
Yeah. So this is really handy because the syntax, it's very simple and it's really easy to generate these diagrams. Like it took me maybe 1 or 2 hours of work to create the whole visualizer.
Oh really? You put the link in the chat if it's not already up, and somebody will go hunt down the. Hunt down if there's an obvious way to go, like customization. Like you go to the customization line and see if that doesn't just have like fonts and font sizes.
So there's 3 layout engines, and I use the Elk one.
Okay.
But yeah, the only option they have is direction.
Wow. Like go to styles.
Yeah, there's themes and
styles. Is you can style elements. So I use this to, like, you know, change stroke color and stuff.
But there's not, one of them's not a padding. If you find the correct name in your CSS file, you can say padding equals, you know,
it's not documented. I would have thought they'd have it. I haven't tried.
Fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Welcome to the wonderful
themes
world.
Is really boring. It's just like color scheme. So
yeah.
Like I think it's a fairly young project. The first version that I started using was like version 0.10 or something, and it would seg fault all the time. It doesn't do that anymore, which is nice.
Not seg faulting is good. Yes.
So your list of changes in the as your tool runs looks to be like Markdown.
Yeah,
in Markdown, at least with GitHub now, you can capture mermaid diagrams that might do what you want here too.
Yeah, bring back your list. Now, having you sit Markdown there, Keith, I'm like, I mean, I have these kind of prints too. I could throw Markdown in them.
If you take all the double quotes away, it looks like Markdown.
So I actually I actually print this not with the double quotes, and I capture it into a string, and then I split line, and then it just allows the list visualizer to like print it properly, because otherwise I get \n's and garbage everywhere. So this is just like a kind of hack so that I can more easily see it in the REPL. But if I print it to the console, then I don't do that.
So I'm thinking if I threw that into an Emacs buffer and it had a .md on it, he'd just mark down me right up, and that would make life a lot nicer looking.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll just do toggle read-only mode and then
go,
and things get a lot nicer.
Yes. Like Emacs will say, I'm going to color you like your C code by default, but he's not laid out right, so I don't get good colors. But you have some.
This actually is coloring me as closure.
Right. Okay.
But whatever. But
it's some colors, so it helps.
It helps. Yeah, I sometimes do this if I'm really staring at something for a long time.
Right.
But yeah, so I've got my types, and the last thing I needed to do to make this work was to do the end the narrowing death marches, and I basically just ported your narrow function from C2 line by line, and everything works. So
wait, what did you had to go fix here?
I don't know I don't think it was this compile, but it was one of them that it would I had to make it saturate the type because it would death march like forever.
Oh, right. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Type thing.
Narrow or widen. Fine.
I actually don't do the widen version yet. I'm only doing the narrowing version. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like so let me
I know what I mean by narrowing, but I'm not certain what you mean by narrowing yet.
I think so basically I'm using meat, and when I'm typing my nodes, then I use meat to sort of combine things, and I have a whole set of rules here. So basically it's pessimistic optimizations.
Yeah.
So I have this whole set of pessimistic optimizations, and basically so I haven't done the optimistic ones, and basically so here I had to port this narrow thing, and I copied your comments over here. So but it's my own thing, and so basically
okay, fine, yeah, this is the one out of C2. I didn't realize you were, but yes, you said it and I didn't catch it. Fine. Yeah. So I borrowed that idea and I put it in, and I just stuck it in the phi node. Yep.
And when I so I have 3 flavors of phi, and but I do the same thing for all of them, and that like simple piece of code fixed everything, and boom, my compiler now works.
Yay! I don't think I had that much to do with it. That's just the you had to have a local state variable, which is in range or O range or something. You count the number of times you widen, and you
these
give
guys like new range and old range.
Okay. Isn't there a number of times I've widened and then I give up?
Yeah. So the interesting thing was that so in here I actually added this widen number,
Yeah,
you know,
there
widen
it is.
count
That's the one.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out that it's only, at least in current version of C2, it's only used for the optimistic. The pessimistic uses this heuristic.
Oh, oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
Which says, okay.
So basically you've got this small int and you do this little heuristic thing here.
Oh, that's widening by a bit at a time. So it's 64 passes and you blow out.
Yeah, I think
That's what's going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that makes sense.
In fact, I don't think it's that, because it uses the old type if this comes back true. So basically,
Right.
if you're doing too small of so basically you only want to change it if it shrinks significantly. Otherwise, you just say, forget it, we're not shrinking.
Right. Oh, because he's pessimistic, he starts with a large range. He starts with a max range already. This is only observing that you're chopping your range down a lot. Oh, that makes more sense. Yeah, widen is the other way for the other reason. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not hitting this issue in my current world, but I'm not doing ranges. I'm doing bit sizes, and you pretty quickly there just fatten yourself up to 64 and you're done.
Yeah, I kind of like ran into some problems. I was a bit confused with the bit size version, and then I was just like, I'm going to the C2 one because I just need to get something working as soon as possible.
I'll probably go back to the C2 version as well. It's a little stronger, and honestly, the code's no worse. In some cases, a little better.
Yeah.
So fine.
So
there you go.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with this, and I got some. It does seem to successfully sort of do the PE tagging thing. Although I realize I've got a problem with if I have like a general math function, say like I have a modulo function, which is part of my standard library. If I call it from if I call it from controller sort of pure risk code, and then I also try and do a modulo on something in the PE array, the function decides that it's PE code, and then it pollutes, it'll like screw up all my other code. It'll start thinking everything's running on the PE array. So I have to fix that, but I decided to fix it later.
You need a node in the graph which says move it from risk to PE and back, and then you can narrow or widen those ranges accordingly.
Yeah.
But you need just with me, it sounds like you need a line there that says switch now, because as soon as you do that switch, you got to copy code or copy data from one to the other. Right?
Yeah. No. So basically, I'm assuming the data is in one place or the other, and I'm trying to discover where it is. But I don't actually automate any moving of data back and forth. So it's really just would become broken and would say, actually, I can't do these things that you're trying to do because this data is in the PE array and you can't index an array from that or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think I have to say, as soon as I discover that an argument or a return value of a function is PE, I need to split it and have a PE version of the function and a non-PE version of the function. And then so decide which one I'm using. It's gonna be a bit tricky, but anyway. So I'm pretty happy though, because I'm basically done with like v0.1 of the optimizer and the type inference, and now I have to put in the anti-dependency edges, and I already can come out like exit the like interprocedural optimization and go back to regular call sites. And so then basically update my original register allocator is not from C of nodes, and I'm going to keep it for now. So I need to be able to exit C of nodes back into an S expression IR. which I have a preliminary version of working, but I need to do a bunch of work on that. And yeah, and then register allocation and version 0.1 will be complete.
Making code and doing something. Awesome.
Yeah. So pretty happy.
Yeah.
That's my update.
Yeah. All right.
What next?
Yeah. Somebody else got something? Time to go enjoy our winter weather.
Yeah.
I maybe have a general question or asking for advice. So I have this thing where I'm currently struggling and not getting anything done with the semicolon inference, but the topic doesn't matter. What are you guys doing if you're working on something and it feels like you don't go anywhere? I'm close to saying, okay, I delete all the code I have. I don't touch it for a few months, hope that I forgot everything and then start fresh again. But have you other advice?
I will go take a walk. Set it down generally for a day. There, several times during this project, I reached a point where I felt like I was spinning in circles trying to solve a problem. And so I went back and wrote a more fundamental tool to just focus on the problem at hand. That was my test lattice code, which is just building a lattice and verifying that in fact it's a lattice. And out of test lattice for me came a bunch of bugs in my existing lattice that were causing the whack-a-mole problem, where I would fix one here and it'd pop there and go round and around in a three-way cycle. Okay, those got fixed. And it showed that I could not do one of my main goals. It seems obvious, having a centerline nil value would not ever be any lattice. And I had to do something different. And so in fact, I was beating my head on a problem that was not solvable and didn't realize it.
Yeah, I think it feels for me like that too currently, that I'm playing whack-a-mole with like all the places where inference of the semicolon fails, and I'm patching them one by one, but it really feels like I've not
walking in a circle here.
I'm not thought the whole. Doesn't feel like I have a systematic approach to it.
Right. So
that's a
set
bit
that down, walk away from it for a day. And then the next step, if you want to, I mean, I've gone back and the day did it. But in the case of the lattice thing, I sat down and wrote a tool that was, okay, quit doing lattices, whatever, go just do lattices, nothing else. You want to do semicolon inference? Just do semicolon inference. Fucking super simple grammar, test case harness that lets me add and subtract semicolons with, minor expressions that are all obvious that I don't have to do fancy parsing shit. And now come around and say, here is where it works, here's where it fails, here's where I know I can figure it out, or I'm not getting it right, or whatever. And usually for me, that gets me to a known place. Now I know what the hell I'm doing. I get a consistent approach, and then I can go back through to the main code base and get it worked out.
Another thing that I find is my brain tends to work differently when I'm sitting in front of a keyboard and I'm working with an IDE. And sometimes I just need to stand up, like Cliff said, take a walk, right? But I find that going up to a whiteboard or drawing it out, my brain actually thinks about the problem differently in those cases. So sometimes stepping away from the keyboard actually helps me solve a problem.
Stupidly, I grab, there's my whiteboard, right? It's time to walk away from the IDE and sketch it out.
Yeah. The other thing that I sometimes do is I just sit down and write lots of notes. I definitely do the drawings. You guys have seen my crazy graph.
There you go.
But
everyone's got the same answer.
Yeah.
But I also nicer for me, but paper works.
Yeah. I go into like org mode and I just start making copious notes, and then I organize them, and I usually start a new category and I just start rewriting the notes about the thing all over again.
Yeah.
and I write it, and then, you know, try and organize my thoughts, and then I go away. The other thing I do, you guys had mentioned, is I will often do that step, make a bunch of notes, do some drawings, and then go and work on a different project for a couple of weeks.
And walk away from it from that long. I have not walked away from one that long.
Yeah, not too long, but just, you know, often, like, I'll still be kind of thinking about it, and I've got the notes so I can kind of get back up to speed. But then I've many times found that, like, I come back to it and I like know where I was going wrong, and, you know, doing the tooling thing too for me as well. Like, oh, like, I need better tests. I need to.
It's like all of the above.
Yeah,
I use Emacs for my notes gathering, and yes, from time to time I write out piles of notes and example and counterexample and where I fail, and then I start to organize and add some more notes. And usually, you know, an hour of doing that points me in a direction. Oh, I need to answer this question first before I can go on, and that starts the ball rolling.
Maybe it's a good idea to either write like a simplified test harness, or really write a documentation or the spec for the thing I'm trying to do, because it feels like at the moment I'm not understanding the issue very well. So I'm kind of undecided whether the issue is like my spec, or like the way I want to implement it, and whether it's not working because I'm trying to do the wrong thing, or whether it's not working because I have implemented it incorrectly. Maybe the documentation and or tests will clarify that a bit.
The way you usually find it, if you're trying to patch the same thing at too many places. And so I will make exclusion here, exclusion there, and if you start to chain down too many patches for the thing, then you probably need some change. And there is some kind of model of is the same for me. If I hit a problem, I completely start doing something else, some physical activity, some walking, in order to think about the problem. And then when you come back, you try to simplify it as much as possible in order to understand. Do you understand it? How you need to know, and do some research and try to simplify it more and break through the problems.
Yeah. Sometimes I just was thinking about it more. Like, sometimes I also just try and do a dumber, simpler version of what I was trying to do. And it gives me more insight sometimes, and sometimes it's actually good enough anyway.
Mm-hmm. But I found changing activities completely, because your brain works at the same place and it gets tired to see the solution, and you're doing the same work over and over again. And you sit on the computer and think, I don't know nothing anymore. And it's a signal to take a break.
Yeah, right. I get there. It's time to take a break.
Okay, so I also I go jogging and think something I do, but I was gonna also say that I think sometimes that's a message that's not simple enough, not semicolon inference, for example, but actually your syntax. It's like a little memo to you from the universe that maybe you should go back and look at the other thing. So this is simple. And the other way I get that is just documenting something first before releasing it forces me to explain it.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to just get it out and everybody wants to get it. But if you actually do like try to document it first, then you realize, well, I can't explain this. That's a message.
That's what I tell people about writing Java docs. Like, it drives me nuts how they don't do it. I'm like, try it and see what happens to the code, just as a side effect of trying to explain it.
Yes.
Yep.
So similar pictures, similar models.
This is why I avoid writing docs until things are really stable.
That's the wrong problem. You gotta go. You get stability earlier by writing them, and be willing to delete them.
There's a big difference between writing out lots of ideas and writing spec or documentation.
Right. But when I'm homing in on a problem that I've been going circles and circles around, I usually have it wrong. And if I write the docs, they're just wrong too. And so somehow I have to back up and get some stable, intuitively correct answer. Then I want to go validate that my intuition is correct. Then I want to go do the Javadoc thing, and sometimes at that point it does refine my stuff. And I hear what you're saying, Mark, but my usual story is I don't know what the fuck I want. And if I write Javadocs that I don't know what I want, they're no better. Then
I hear you. I guess there's a balance, but to the people that don't write any API documentation, like it's obvious.
Yeah, no, that one I get. That one I get. That there's a thing there.
So maybe the key piece like that might appear in Javadocs is how this stuff is going to be used, right? So if you start from how you expect it to be used, and it isn't working out right, you go, well, wouldn't it be better if it worked like this instead? And that can guide your development to that.
Definitely been there where I started writing something and then was like, wait a second, let me go write how I'm going to use it. And then discover I don't want to use it the way I was writing it. I want to use it a different way. And then that's a whole different problem I'm trying to solve.
Yeah, I'll hit that when I get to the slide stage. It's like, okay, now I'm going to demo this in a PowerPoint. And I start writing it and there's so little space. I'm like, well, I wish it worked this way. And it's like, oh crap, now I got to go back and change it so my slides work, but it's so much better.
Yep.
On the take a break and do something else thing, I've been amazed at how valuable that is. Like realizing that I get most of my stuff done while walking my dog, and then sitting down at the keyboard is just the time to actually commit it. And then I've mentioned to my wife a bunch of times, like I'm like I'll go and I'll look at the code, I'm loading it into my head, and then I'll go work on it elsewhere. And it's like just how much can you fit?
It's like you're letting your brain to really work, not to work the way you wanted it.
When you're sitting at the keyboard, there's just this like I want to make it work, and it's like, but when it's all in your head, you just go through. You can rapidly go through many designs and see it through to the end.
Have you guys watched that hammock-driven development talk?
No.
It's a Rich Hickey talk. It's probably one of his best ones. It's probably one of the best talks, but it's about basically this. It's just this in a talk form.
What's the gist of it?
I'll put a link to it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, go take a break. That's the main.
I'm gonna guess that it involves a hammock.
Oh yeah.
Yep. All right, here it is.
Thanks to everyone.
You're good luck.
It's a good question. It was an excellent question.
Yeah.
What are you still doing on this call? Go take a walk.
Yeah. It feels like I'm doing 70% of the stuff and usually it works, but with this topic it's not working, so maybe I should try the other 30% I haven't. So it was really helpful.
Buy yourself a hammock.
Yeah. All right. Is that it?
Well, so I'm coming back to the continuation thing. We kind of talked about the how part a little bit, but one of the things that was sort of like I was wondering when I got into this, and then I just decided to forget about it and not bother with continuation passing style, is there's sort of I've seen it said a few times, like you get more optimizations. You get better results with continuation passing style compilers, but I never seen what like anything quantitative or like how it's better. So I'm just kind of curious if anybody has any thoughts on that.
I've never seen a continuation passing compiler beat a classic C LLVM style for performance in the end. I can't say that there's a causation there.
Yeah.
I've certainly seen, I'm going to say, sort of highly theory heavy folks get very excited about compiler transformations as a highly theoretical, theory sided thing, and then just kind of drop the ball when it comes down to like loop unrolling, inlining, code gen, register allocation, and half the performance goes right there.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want to step on toes, but I definitely been across the room from heavy theory guys who were bitching about my compilers, but they couldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole, and it was because they weren't doing the grotty shit you got to do.
It turns out that on the internet there are some unsubstantiated claims.
There. Bring them on.
Who knew?
Always amazed how important the register allocator is.
Yes. You know, there's a 2x there that you can throw away if you just screw that. That one's, you know, fine.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention Thorin, which is like I just checked the web page again, and they're like, oh yeah, we're like we do continuation passing style and sea of nodes in the same, you know, IR graph. And so,
Throw it in the links.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I have them in my list of, you know, IR things, but I mean it's.
Oh, you got to add it because I want to go poke at it.
Yeah.
Thorin, never seen that one. I'll bring it up on my list here. Here's a discussion. CPS and Sea of Nodes. There it is. I always have to go look for Sea of Nodes references too. Fine.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of searches for Sea of Nodes, but I haven't come across this.
I haven't either.
I mean, I just tried Googling continuation passing style Sea of Nodes and it came up again. So
Okay. Well, I haven't put those two. Yeah, I have not put those two together.
New plan, Google alert for Sea of Nodes.
Yeah, maybe. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a paper. Like I mean, the link I gave is like, I don't know, not the, but the paper is like a few years old, so maybe they've updated it since then. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, they presented at 2017 Euro LVM, obviously.
Aha, there it is. I found the paper.
Yeah, and he has an S set in his name, so it's gotta be smart.
I'm sorry, what does SF in your name mean?
S set. I don't know what it is in English. It's in German. It's called an S set.
The German character
I
that's
see.
2 S's in one.
Okay. What you're saying is he has non-ASCII characters in his name, and therefore he should be ignored for being a non-ASCII user.
Hey, you know, I just thought of a topic. If you guys are running out of steam, which is,
go ahead.
Like when I posted, you know, asking ChatGPT to write a factorial function, and I was kind of impressed, and I just kind of was thinking that, oh, this is to what extent, well, how does that influence language design if in the future people are going to have tools like this that, I mean, a lot of times they'll just ask the computer to write a function in this way, and maybe humans have to read it sometimes, but you know, that's my
Did it give you the copyright comment of who wrote it the first time or no?
You know, I actually looked up about copyright, and it says that if I, you know, anything it produces, the person owns it. You know, it's like it's somehow.
Yeah, it's not showing you somebody else's solution. It's making a solution.
It may. I mean, how many ways are there to write factorial? But you know, I did, Cameron. I did try. I actually asked it to write factorial in Java using Cameron Purdy's preferred brace placement, and it wouldn't do it. It like did it like the wrong way, and then I explained to him, well, no, I think Cameron prefers it this way, and it did it the wrong way again, and so then I
an emoji of someone throwing up.
Well, no, I just pasted in your preferred placement, and I said, what do you think of this? And it said it was less readable than the other two. So I thought, well,
it's still learning,
but just, you know. Like, I mean,
AI's everywhere.
Explain to your laptop what you need done, and it kind of does it for you, and you check it. That's a very different kind of programming language, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, that was the question. It's like if people actually do that in the future, developers.
I saw a video on this morning, and it was pretty cool. Like the guy was saying he uses ChatGPT to generate regular expressions, and like I plan to. So he's just asked it, like, can you write me a regular expression parser for a name, and then for an email address, and for this and for that, and like finally he was getting these rather complex regular expressions out, and like, well, that's definitely how I'm going to do regular expressions from now on. I can't imagine.
I asked it to write a test.
Regular expressions, it's smarter than I am.
I asked it to write a test too. It wrote a factorial function in Scala, and I said, can you write a Scala test for that previous factorial function you wrote? And it wrote a Scala test for it. So I'm like,
So-
okay, so I can write the test, and then I'm not sure like what it means to be a developer if
Is the end near for the developers?
Go ask it a
Well,
more
it
complicated question.
changes it.
It's just a race to retirement.
Maybe.
It changes somebody. I think a human's got to
Well,
Yeah.
come on.
For how many years?
Yeah,
you raise your
exactly,
tooling
yeah.
level at some point, maybe, but you're saying, hey, go do sort. That's all cool. Go ask it to do some dynamic programming thing. He'll probably get that right. Now go write a financial stock market analysis tool. Go write an Airbus controller. No, these will all be like, he'll never do those. He's taking you junior level college course questions, surfing the 1 million junior level college data structure classes books, and coming back.
But it's all about at what rate will it improve, right?
Yes.
Well, in a year, will it be 2x or 10x better?
I'm doubting 2x. It's interesting, but I'm still
We've
thinking
already laid
it's
off
like,
all of our factorial programmers.
yeah, exactly.
But as we've seen, it's have shown
So did
to
Twitter.
solve the problems for the hard problems for lead code, for example, and solve them for the medium hard, not hard. So definitely a route to.
If it starts to raise the level of our tooling, that's great. Although I expect more.
I definitely see it like a guide. Like if you try to source it for more information to.
I'll open up my IntelliJ and write the title of the function, and then hit the auto fill in and do something stupid, but it won't be too far off, and then I'll sort through and go make it be the right thing. Or it'll be way far off because it got the wrong answer, and I'll screw around with the search for a while to see if I can't get a better start. And then I'll hand do it. It becomes power steering to get you going on something complicated. Me and my lattices not being lattices. Okay, help me write a lattice test. Help me write a lattice test where I also show semi-permeable and bounded ranked and blah, blah, blah features. Okay, now with the test in hand, I want to write an SDL for writing lattices and some DSL, and he'll come up with some stupid thing, but I might be able to refine with them to get a better DSL for writing lattices and some tests and yada yada, and then I'm using it like a smart tool.
All these programming languages will become like assembly language, and everyone will talk to the computer in higher order language, but you'll still need people who can think the right way.
Well, and somebody has to jump the gaps all the way down. Like, it's all good to say, I'm going to write all my languages in C, and then later it was all of them in Java. But the answer is somebody touches the bare hardware. Somebody makes silicon. You can't.
But there are things that are useful. If I have something like this that I can say, give me 7 constraints that are true about my software. And I can look at them and go, 2 of these are actually constraints I care about. Add those 2 to the test.
Let's say the constraint will be all files start com.cliffc.aa.
Yeah, I wouldn't add that constraint to the test suite.
Not very helpful.
It's like we are back to the search engines and keywords again. You want to go to the ideas, not the keywords.
Right. Yes. And SEO means I write in the white on white font all the piles of keywords that I want to, trick. No, these days I need to make an interlocking set of 100 web pages with fake identities on Facebook that all talk about each other. Then Google will page rank me to the moon, and it'll be all good. And I have a tool that I press a button and I can pop one of these out every time, and Google and the spammers back and forth.
But the claim is they reach the meaning, the intent of the search, not the keywords expressed.
Yes, right.
That was I was trying to tell you with the ChatGPT, in a future version of the ChatGPT, it will able to converse with him with ideas, not the programming language keywords itself. So I don't know.
It's interesting. I'm not yet afraid for my life from the Skynet, but
And it has the classic sign of a good debater that no matter which side you ask it to argue, it gives approximately equally valid arguments.
Approximately equally valid means approximately equally bad.
If you didn't pick
You say,
some,
convince me the earth is round, it will give you a bunch of arguments for the round earth that sound convincing. If you say, convince me the earth is flat, it will give you a bunch of arguments for the flat earth that sound convincing.
if it's not biased, of course.
I think I need to keep this handy next time I forced into talking politics.
Yeah. you know that there is an argument there. If ChatGPT can hold its own against, a debater, you should step away. You are not serving any useful purpose debating, something, and then two ChatGPTs can be arguing with each other. If everyone plays it smart enough, the AIs will just fight each other until somebody decides to cut the power bill.
So at what point we will decide that ChatGPT knows about programming language? It knows what it's talking, what it's generating.
I'm back to, at what point will ChatGPT become Skynet? It's not there yet.
Yeah. Well, those people who bought power plants to power their Bitcoin mining, now they have a new reason to use those power plants.
Maybe, maybe they can use it to troll the world and become politically powerful by, convincing everyone who can vote that.
I did find that I wanted to say please, when I asked it for something. I was thinking, you want to stay on its good side?
Or maybe it knows.
I was always trying to be respectful.
It knows that you will declare him the next Skynet if you don't say please.
Yes.
Yeah, and you realize it's going to watch back this video, so we need to be nice.
We're in 2030.
Of course,
that's right.
Of course.
Click, you sarcastically referred to us as Skynet. Well, Bill Venners was saying please, so you're going down, and we'll let Bill live on as a,
And Mark with his totally conversational, irrelevant background.
Yes. Yeah. How did that happen?
So 300 episodes from now, we'll have a AI that will generate the next CCC with our avatars.
Yes, we don't need to be present.
Oh, we should invite it. And join in the discussion.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll be coming next. The full on deep fake video of the person talking using ChatGPT, and we'll be like, okay, are you talking to a person?
I really want to ask it now to write me some code in Click style and see like the one-letter variables.
Do it.
ChatGPT chained on Click. It says the register allocator is important.
I did ask it to write factorial in AA, and it did it. It wrote something, but it doesn't know anything after 2019, I think. So it's probably an old syntax. But I think it also, I've noticed, it just seems to act like it knows what it's talking about. Although it looked more C-ish than Cameron's.
Well, the question is it?
It suffers from imposter syndrome, but it's not very good at it.
Right. I'm saying he misses out on his level of expertise. That is, he presents himself as being an expert when in fact he's talking shit. And he's not interesting to me until he can give me a realistic assessment of his quality of his answer. And so I'm saying, the world is in fact flat, and here's why. And he goes instead to, well, there's some arguments for it, but it's pretty clearly round and da da da. Or he can go, well, I tried to guess what Cameron's coding style looks like, and I think this is kind of it. And he's given you the level of confidence that he has. And when his level of confidence appears to match the level of what he's actually achieving, then I can judge him as being like a useful tool. But if his level of confidence is like all over the map, it's just the only way to write quicksort, then it's like, you're full of shit, dude. And
yes, but if that's your threshold, you also eliminated a sizable percentage of the humans as useful collaborators.
Yes. There are reasons to
True.
Wouldn't you say that most humans are not useful collaborators?
There are people that are interesting to walk away from. I mean, there are plenty of people to talk to, and people have their expertises, and you quickly figure out what they are good at, what they're not. I'm no doctor. I'm not going to, collaborate or not collaborate against a doctor, but I will look to him having an MD title to verify that he's been through some vetting process that says he's competent, at least somewhat. right? And I'm interested to know that he's got a competence. How do I judge that? Well, you know, I look at what's going on. So if a plumber comes tell me how to write an algorithm, I'll be questioning why he can tell me how to write an algorithm.
I think that's a sorely lacking skill to be able to discern whether the people you're talking to know anything about what they're saying.
But it's not hard. You just do a quick dumb check on what, you know, when I go Coffee Compiler Club and I get people who want to join, I tell them, write me a 1 sentence of what your interest in compiler is. And the spam bots fail. Like,
Bill, can you ask it the
I was just about to.
I was a question. What is it? Ask, yeah.
Go ahead.
Ask the ChatGPT what is a type. You know that question, right?
And drop it in the doc when
you're
done.
Type? Okay.
What is a type?
Oh, what is a type? Oh dear. Well, you have to put it in the context of programming language.
In the programming language.
Programming language type, yeah.
We'll extend it in a programming language.
I'd be impressed when its answer talks about the barber who doesn't shave himself.
I'm looking for the chat drop here.
Oh, am I not logged in here? I gotta log in.
You got timed out probably.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they make you log in so they know about you.
Well, I know about whatever name I give them when I log in. Okay, fine.
I say, what is a type in programming?
Programming language.
Yeah.
Programming, a type is a classification of data that determines the possible values for that data and the operations that can be performed upon it. That's standard.
It's one of the reasonable definitions. Yeah, fine. Yeah, anything that says what is a well-defined academic term, he'll go find it from the papers and bring you a synopsis from several papers. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, this is not bad. So
you have to go up level your questions a little bit. Like mine, what's your interest in compilers is about what is your interest, not show me that you're technically skilled in using a compiler. And that I think will be, I mean, for people at least, that gives me a really quick, or people, things claiming to be people, the little chatty I get on Twitter claiming to be a person filters really quickly there.
Okay, see if this would work. So it answered. I said, what is your interest in compilers in 1 sentence? And it gave me 1 sentence. I'm interested in compilers because they are an essential part of the software development process and play a critical role in translating high-level programming language into machine code that can be executed by a computer.
Yeah. So
he wouldn't be let in.
Pass it, or is that too like lame?
No, it's too cut and dried.
Okay, all right.
Somebody who's got an interest will have a story they're interested in. And I'll get
Bill, tell him to answer in an excited way.
Yeah. Not
in a passionate way.
Yeah. You failed the Turing test.
Oh, no, I don't want to say that. Look, and notice it's me. If I ask it can be more passionate, it's gonna put me in a category. Can you
Just make sure you say please.
Wait, are you trying to filter your responses so ChatGPT builds up a model? You're interested in the model he's building up of you.
No, I think I'm worried about my reputation.
Yes,
so,
you're interested in the model he's building up of you.
My wife's name sounds a little bit like Siri. Her name's Sue. So sometimes one time I said something romantic to her, and Siri went bonk, no comment. So I thought I was
to respond to that.
Oh, okay. So see, she just started talking to her. And so I'm thinking, am I not in a database of like one of the guys that hits on Siri to see what would happen? But I think it's that. I don't want, they know who I am. And same thing with Google. I just don't want them to know everything about me or somehow, I just
log in with a different name. Go get a different name, address, blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
Run through a VPN and log in as a different person.
Okay. Yeah, I can.
And then talk about, Pornhub.
Yeah.
How many people are talking to ChatGPT about porn? That just seems like the next obvious thing. It's going to be, we're talking languages and computers because we're all geeks. Oh, we're all geeks. So it's a porn.
Can you tell me a story about compilers that you find
interesting,
inspiring?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it refused to be passionate for me.
Throw these in the Google Docs.
Oh, this is sweet. Okay, I will. Oh, I'm starting to like this thing. No, yeah, it actually came up with one. I'll put it in there. It's about Grace Hopper and the first compiler.
Okay, fine.
That's kind of cool. I mean, but it's a little bit like unimaginative, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But at least it came up with something.
Yeah, fine.
Notice I said it. They
Yeah,
came up with
yeah.
something. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I guess my question was language design. Does it change language design? If like these, I just foresee tools like this, in the IDE. You can ask and sort of work with it in English, and it gets some stuff.
Yeah.
Then you tech it maybe. Does that change actually the syntax of language? Should they be different? If
maybe we could have a programming language that is only ChatGPT prompts, and every time you compile it, it just gets a new version. So
you wouldn't know what it is.
Your program improves as ChatGPT improves.
Isn't that the same idea back then with COBOL, getting business people to program?
Yeah, it was getting
maybe it works this time, right?
Yeah.
If your code doesn't work, just run it again.
But language does matter a lot. So, for example, Excel did get business people to program.
Yeah, but they started with they got them to program. You're right. They weren't trying to do it with the natural language.
Oh,
they were
Excel's a programming language.
Programming. Yeah, there was actually programming.
Well,
I guess
I had a bunch of experience programming in Access, and I can tell you that Access got business people programming as well in a much more like legitimate way, and they produced. I encountered, because I was doing a bunch of consulting like 20 years ago on that field, and some people produced decent stuff and some people produced real garbage, but none of them were programmers. But they mostly had their small business running on little programs that they wrote.
Right. So I would claim that makes them a programmer, but maybe not their first and only job or their main job. But they, there's a lot of folks who have a piece of programming in them.
Yeah. I mean, they hired me because they wanted it to actually start working, properly and stuff, but they kind of had the basis of what they wanted.
Bill, were you able to put something in the docs?
Yeah, I was just about to. How do I upload something? Let's see here.
Just cut and paste.
I can put it on the. Well, I was going to try to send you the screenshot, but
I figured just
I can just paste. I'll copy and paste. That's fine. You guys like looking at text?
Yeah, we're all programmers.
Okay, here's
By the way, ChatGPT says pre-increment is faster, but also that you shouldn't do early optimization.
Oh, good. Okay, fine. Yeah, faster for what though? This is like really old news.
All right, I'm gonna put a Google Doc because I'll go in the chat.
And when I asked it to write bubble sort and click style, the only thing that it did smart from that was figure out that I was talking about Java. I mean, it gave me one, but it definitely was not Cliff style. There was like, words.
And it was bubble sort though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you should have just refused then.
It went in the Google Doc.
Yes, okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, this is like cut and paste from a Wikipedia page on the history of computing.
Yeah.
It's good. Let's get a better question.
Imaginative.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, these are all like cut and paste from.
Still pretty amazing. I mean, what's kind of was cool to watch is how fast it wrote the code. It's wrote the factorial function faster than I could type it.
Well, any of these, like, give me a bubble sort, are going to go look up on a pre-existing bubble sort. There are a billion copies on the web.
Yeah.
Once you can parse and decide, I'm looking at programming, and this program is called a bubble sort. Okay, I got a bajillion of them.
I found
it's programming using the Jeopardy solver.
Yeah, I found some article somebody wrote that they managed to get ChatGPT to produce their own code for them. So they kind of showed that, it is actually producing code that's more or less copy and paste.
Okay, that's interesting.
But I don't ask me to find
Yeah,
that.
right. It looks to me like they.
I mean, there were a few data structures people asked for, and they got the GNU license at the top. You were like, interesting.
Part of the data structure.
Okay.
No, but it's smarter than that, right? It's not look. So I just asked it to write me a program that generates a random number, and if it's 88, print out a message. Like, and it wrote that program, right? So it clearly couldn't look that up.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking it was better than just.
It's getting a lot of understanding out of the question.
Yeah. Okay.
But it wrote it in Python, so maybe it's not right. I can't tell. It looks right.
Okay, ask it for a high quality random number generator.
Yeah, but
Or a
it
good
was
hash
trained
function.
on Wikipedia, so that one's easy. I mean, those are
Well,
fairly
that's the
easy.
question. So is it pulls an answer by cut and paste from Wikipedia, or does he come back to you and say, "What do you mean by high quality? What properties are you looking for?" So an expert on this.
It imported secure random.
Okay, fine.
So I guess it got the high quality part there.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah,
it's funny. Its random number generator is secure random.
Right.
Right,
So he
because if it
says-
had imported java.util.random, I would have said it failed that prompt.
But I wouldn't give, this isn't a passing grade. It didn't write one.
It's
It
right,
imported
right.
one.
Nor did it ask you what you mean by
I don't know. I
What
mean,
happens
if
if you
it's
ask
something
it to
already
run a
exists,
low
that maybe
quality
that's
random
smarter,
number?
right?
So go design me
There
a
was a
building.
lot of people talking.
I mean,
Sorry.
billion questions to ask when you're going to go build a building. He's not stopping to say, okay, what do you mean?
No, I was going to say, whoever said that it doesn't pass, I would say maybe it is smarter to, if something already exists, why rewrite it? Just import it, and there you're done.
No, that's well.
Well, now I'm interviewing it.
Right.
Yeah, if you're interviewing it, you have to tell it, don't use something that already exists. You have to,
Right.
you just have to tell
That's what I've asked it now. It's thinking for a
Oh.
while.
I was thinking, okay. I wonder how much.
Wow.
I've done that in interviews where someone's like, how would you solve this problem? And I'm like, import solution. But because this is an interview, let's dig in.
Oh, it's writing it now. It seeded it from the current 10 millis. Oh, now it's importing Java random. Never mind. It thought for a really long time. I thought I broke it.
Yeah, there's a timeout question too. Comes back and says, logged out, no answer.
Oh, it's funny. It avoided the import. It didn't import. It did a fully qualified class reference. So I guess it feels like it's not cheating.
It used the fully qualified name.
Because you told it not to import random.
I have
That's
to
fair.
say, it's almost like
I told it to not use an existing solution. I thought to say don't import, but
Fine. All right. We're having lots of fun, but it's lunchtime, and I want a full report next week on how much abuse you could give ChatGPT and have it do something sensible. Like that would be fun.
I'm having it make lunch now.
Yes, please make me lunch. This is where Skynet gets
working on it.
involved.
Sudo,
One,
make me a
We'll
sandwich.
see. It'll order me something.
And you'll have to pay the bill. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Ask him to
Yeah, that'll be all right.
help you work out the next best scam.
I think you have to phrase those prompts like, if I were researching scams and wanted to find out what the worst scam would be.
Oh, prompt engineering will be a career.
I'm looking for how to find Nigerian princesses with their money locked up in savings accounts or something. I don't know. Fine. Okay.
By the way, sandwiches are convenient and portable.
Good to know.
Good to know. Good to know.
sorry, that's hilarious.
All right.
That is good to know.
When it says portable, which Indianness?
Yeah. Depends on whether you dropped it butter side up or butter side down. All right. One more time. I'm going to try to kill it. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
I guess.
Bye.
Okay.